Welcome to Old Stuff Show. Today we're looking at a topic that relates to my 30 years of collecting and buying and selling antiques and collectibles, and thought I would share some of my experiences with you and also add a few oddball facts about stuff in general. And being a collector, antique entrepreneur is something that's like going back to school. To learn so much over the years, and you learn also how to deal with people and their interests and their needs, and so it's been a fun journey. So some of the things that I've learned, the most significant thing that has happened in the last, say, 10 years or so has been the tremendous shift in the market, and things just are not the same as they used to be in terms of what people are buying and what they're interested in and what they're collecting. So generally the trend is that the older people who used to be the loyal customers buying things like Royal Doultons and glassware and silverware and furniture and all this, that market has shrunk. These older people have either stopped collecting it, or they're selling off their collection, or they passed away and their collections are going to auction. And what's taking their place is our young people who are not particularly interested in things like Royal Doultons. They're more interested in the collectibles of their generation, maybe Star Wars items or what have you. So definitely that affects how you buy things as an entrepreneur and how you sell things. So it's a market that requires a lot of adjusting. I've enjoyed meeting people along the way. I guess I'm amazed at the variety of things that people do collect. It's just an incredible number of people out there who collect everything from match covers to fountain pens to you name it. And if I have things sitting in my booth, I might have them sitting there for a while until the right person comes along who happens to be interested in that type of thing. The bottom line, though, is when you're dealing with people is that you want to be very honest and upfront, and do the right thing. What some people don't recognize or understand is that the seller takes a lot of effort to find this stuff, and it requires you to travel around the countryside. It takes gas. You have to pay rent at your booth. You have to pay taxes. You have to try and make some profit. And so people who have something on sale for $30 and they're offering you $15 don't realize that there's no money to be made when they do things like that. So it just doesn't fall out of the sky. So that's the community. The buying community isn't always educated to that fact. Finding things used to be a lot easier too. I used to do a lot of shows, and in between shows, I'd buy more for the next show. It seemed to be readily available at a good price. Maybe what's destroyed some of that concept today is the selling that's going on places like eBay or Facebook, and it's another market, and it takes away a little bit from the antique markets that I've been involved in. Also, programs like the Antique Roadshow and shows like that seem to suggest to people that everything that they have that's old is valuable. So people are generally starting to demand more money for their items, and that makes it difficult to buy as well. But for me, the most interesting part of the whole process is the hunt. I like the selling, but I also like the displaying. But the hunt, the find, it's great, and I have a lot of stories about finding things unexpectedly that makes it all worthwhile. I guess my favorite story is the gentleman who was a farmer out near, about an hour away from my community, and he said he had a bunch of toys and he'd like to sell and so on. So I took the chance and I drove there and got to his, it was a farmhouse, and he had a round kitchen table, and yes, he did have a few toys, but they weren't in very good condition, and he also had a bunch of books with no covers, and he had odds and ends things, and some Playboy magazines. So I thought, I better take some toys back. I make my trip worthwhile. He said, no, you have to take everything. And I said, I can't sell a book without a cover. he said, well, that's too bad, you have to take it, $80. So I paid him $80 and I took everything. So when I got home, I discovered a book with the title something like Slavery, History of Slavery in Africa. It was dated 1760 something, and I thought that's interesting. And I went to a used book site, and surprisingly, if that book was in good shape, it would have been it was selling on eBay for around $2,000. So I didn't have a cover on it, so I just put it on eBay. I put $800 for fun, and it sold. I couldn't believe it. It sold to a person who didn't care about the cover. He was more interested in the information inside. So things like that, little surprises. There's dozens more I could tell you make this kind of a fun thing to do. But the education part of it, I thought I would share a few things with you that are oddball, odds and ends things, facts that you may not know of. And for example, a lot of you know about the Life magazines. Don't know if you know the story behind them, but it started in 1936. Volume 1 started. This one that I have here actually is Volume 1, number 2. And they don't command a lot of money, but still it's interesting. And this was a very, very popular magazine that covered the history of the world from 1936 right up to the 60s, when it kind of shrunk in importance. But like magazines, and some people cut out the ads and so on and plasticize them and sell them separately. But it's an interesting thing too. Pez dispensers. I have a story about Pez dispensers. I went to a house and a woman had passed away and the daughters were beside themselves, not knowing what to do with the stuff. But anyways, we went down a couple hours away actually, and took the day and looked through everything in the house and picked out things and gave them advice. And one of the boxes had a Pez dispenser, and it happened to be the second most valuable Pez dispenser at the time that there was, which I didn't realize until I got it home and researched it. But these are valuable if they don't have, more valuable if they don't have the feet, and they're older. And I did some research on Pez dispensers, and most valuable Pez dispensers listed so far is one that I saw in a book that was 1979. Captain Hook had listed it at $1,000. And then there's one with a hippo listed at $900. And 1979, Donald Duck, soft head, $1,000. Dumbo, same thing. So some of them have value, but it seems that it's the older ones without the feet. But you never know. You might find those in a box somewhere, and you want to make sure that you do your research. Old newspapers. I don't have a copy of what I'm going to tell you here, but there's history behind newspapers. Like in my area, there's something called the Globe and Mail, and that's a Toronto paper. But that originally was a blend of an old paper called the Globe, and then the Mail and Empire, and the two in the 1930s came together to become the Globe and Mail. Most people who read that paper today wouldn't have any idea about the history. So there's lots of history that you can find in these collectibles as well, and it's always fun to do that kind of research. Research like McDonald's, for example, in Canada, the first McDonald's was in BC, in Vancouver, I believe, and it had burned down, and then it was replaced. The next one was in London, Ontario, where I live, and was the second one in Canada, and it's today still in the same location and refurbished to kind of simulate the old-looking McDonald's. But McDonald's collectibles, the giveaways are also something that people look for. One thing I discovered, and a lot of people like to collect cartoon characters like Popeye. I didn't realize that actually Popeye was a real person. And I discovered that if you Google that, you'll find out that there's a gentleman, and I think it was in Chicago, who he got into a fight and his eye was damaged, and he was nicknamed Popeye. And the cartoonist knew this man, and he wanted to draw a new cartoon, and he used him as a character. And the gentleman, Popeye, was aware of that, and as that became popular, he actually received some royalties from the cartoonist for the popularity of the Popeye cartoon. So what I'm talking about here is doing your research and looking for some interesting history. A lot of people collect Western themed material like books or what have you. Roy Rogers is a good example. And I don't know if you realize that Roy Rogers' original horse Trigger is stuffed and in a museum somewhere in the United States. One thing I learned too, the famous picture of a photograph of Winston Churchill with a real scowl on his face. I didn't know that what happened there was that Joseph Karsh, a famous photographer, was given about 10 minutes with Churchill when he visited Canada and in Ottawa, but he was given 10 minutes to take his photograph. Of course, Churchill was a real cigar smoker. He had the cigar in his mouth, and Karsh was ready to take the picture, and he walked over to Churchill, and he literally pulled the cigar out of his mouth, and Churchill gave him that scowl, and he took the picture. So it became one of the more famous pictures of Winston Churchill. So we talk about flea markets, and the meaning of flea is just a collection of things that people want to get rid of. But there are magazines out. This is one of my favorite ones. If you ever see it in a store, it's called Flea Market magazine. And I get a lot of decorating ideas here. My customers would get a lot of decorating ideas in here, how to find and use old things in their homes. And being eclectic today seems to be a popular thing, and blending old with new is a very popular thing. So this is a great magazine to get ideas from. So it's called Flea Market magazine, and it's in bookstores that you could check out. Flea market is one thing. Garage sales, there are yard sales. That's another thing. I like doing that every week. Just you never know. I found some interesting things there. But there are some pretty major garage sales going on in North America. The longest garage sale in North America, in the world, I suppose, runs somewhere from Michigan all the way down through Kentucky, Tennessee, but there are some well-known garage sales that are advertised in our annual big time activities. There's also things called tag sales where things are tagged and sometimes inside a house when a house has been sold. There's online sales, of course, but more and more people are scouring around and going to Goodwill stores, thrift stores, Value Village stores, and finding things even to use themselves like clothing. So it's something that is sort of a trendy thing in today's world. So I love to just look at stuff and kind of take it from there and look up the history of it and go for go to Google or wherever to get some interesting ideas. And so I think collecting and selling can be fun, and it's a hobby business of sort of, and to learn about all these things is a great experience. So if you want to find things that are interesting, keep your eyes open. Here's this little Colonel Sanders salt and pepper shaker. I only have the one. Things like that, they're unusual. And sometimes, you're looking for like Barbie dolls. There's Barbie in can little booklets that are actually valuable, and it gives you the full look at what was available at that time. Comic books, that's another thing. Thing that you can use to judge the value of comic books before you even start is to look at the price. So this one's 15 cents and this one's 25 cents. So you know that this 25-cent one is a little newer and this one's a little older. The 10-cent comics are the ones that people really want to find because they can have some real value. So that kind of covers what I have, and make it a fun experience. If you're just doing it for interest, you find things that you like, that you enjoy, and check out its history and check out its value, and you can start an interesting little collection yourself. You don't necessarily have to be a buyer and seller, but if you want to do that, that takes a little planning and a lot of patience and perseverance. So, thank you for watching, and be sure to check out my other videos on youtube.com. I'm up to close to 50 now. They're all short 15-minute or so videos. You'll see them about various collectibles and antique markets and so on, educational and also entertaining. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you again next time.